Well, we're back. It's a Friday.
Back.
And
Happy
you know what
Friday.
Friday means. Friday means the Alter Live show is here. We were just having a conversation off air about the new season of Mrs. Maisel. So, Maeve, before I cut you off, continue with your hyperventilating about the end of season 3.
Oh yeah, so end of season 3 was really stressful. If you haven't seen it, I won't let you know. I'll just let you know that I almost left the room because I was really stressed of the outcome of what this character was about to do. Because she's a stand-up, I was worried about one of her sets, and yeah, I almost left the room. But it left on such like a crazy cliffhanger, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this season.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't a bad anxiety. It was an anxiety of like you care so much for these characters.
Right.
Which is crazy because it's such a weird show, and it's such a I don't even know how to put it. It's got a weird dynamic that you feel like some of the people hate each other, but they actually really love each other, and I don't know. Like it's very well written. Of course, Amy Sherman Palladino, queen of all things Gilmore.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
What else has she done? Do you know?
Well, obviously Gilmore Girls,
Right.
and then there was the show Bunheads, which I actually have never watched. I think it only lasted a season, but I heard good things about it. But that's all I know of like the 3 shows that she's done, but she must have done other things. Because
I'm looking at it right now, and it literally strikes. There is nothing. I know that some of the people in it, like Kelly Bishop, of course, because she's in every Amy Sherman Palladino thing. Like she's going to be in the new season of
I know. I'm
Maisel.
so excited. I love her.
But Caitlin Jenkins, like I've seen her before. It looks
I know
like
Sutton Foster.
Yeah, Sutton Foster. Bailey DeYoung, like I know her.
Okay.
I don't know how I know her. Oh, she's like in all of the things. She's in Maisel as well, Bunny DeYoung. She's the oh my gosh, what's the friend's name? Imogene. She's Imogene.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I love it when like writers and actors have the relationship, so they'll be in like a bunch of different of their projects. I think that's so fun.
It's the what's his face? It's the Brad Pitt and like, oh my gosh, Coen Brothers thing. Like Brad Pitt's in every Coen Brothers movie ever.
Yes.
That type of thing.
Yes.
Because Brad Pitt, of course, is still awesome. I don't know if you knew that. He is still awesome. He's actually going to be in. Oh, I gotta flip the other thing in 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Hello.
Well, welcome to the Alter Live show. You can see we're talking about VR Church. Let me get that point out of there, though. He's in a new Netflix movie that I saw during the Super Bowl. That I was watching this going, that's Brad Pitt, and he's working with Netflix. What?
Interesting.
How's this happening? But anyway, it's happening. We've got Stephanie chiming in and saying happy Friday. Happy Friday to Stephanie. Anybody else jumping in live? Let us know where you're jumping in from, who you're jumping in with. If there's anyone around you, just wave at them for us. And let us know how your week's been. We are approaching kind of Brad Pitt will never die, Stephanie says. Listen, Brad Pitt invented the new ideal of what it means to be a man in 1999 with Fight Club. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but all of a sudden, the entire world was swept up in, oh, that's what you got to do to be a guy. Get super ripped and hit people right in the face. Okay, cool. Have you seen Fight Club?
No, I have not. I don't know if I probably should. I just feel like I wouldn't like it.
Maeve. No, it's amazing.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's once you get past, so like you think something Fight Club and you go like, oh my gosh, this is going to be just dudes hitting each other. And like there's a fair amount of dudes hitting each other.
Okay.
But there's a story that's kind of dark, actually super dark. But the psychological aspect of the Ed Norton, Brad Pitt sort of, Meatloaf is in it. I can never remember the girl's name from Ichabod, and she starred opposite Johnny Depp in Helena Bonham Carter.
Helena Bonham Carter?
Yeah, her.
Interesting.
So.
Okay, I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, don't watch with anybody younger than you.
Yeah, no, I won't.
You're gonna have to explain some stuff, and it's gonna get weird.
I won't do that. I have seen the 30 Rock episode where Liz Lemon accidentally joins a fight club. That is my
roughly the same. Yeah, the same.
That's my introduction into the Fight Club.
Yeah. First rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Liz Lemon, though. So before we get into the hotly debated topic that you saw earlier as a sneak peek, where we're talking about VR, Maeve and I wanted to bring something to your attention, and that is this. We oftentimes get asked in this culture the desert island question of what is the thing that you would take to a desert island, or what is the top 3 things that you would read the rest of your life, or top 3 movies, like if you could only do a certain thing. And I posed this question to Maeve yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and I said, okay, we're going to save this, but Maeve, I ask you live on the internet.
Yes.
If you could only eat 3 things for the rest of your life, 3 meals for the rest of your life, what would they be in ascending order? So 3, 2, 1.
Okay. My first one would be salad. Only Wow, such excitement for salad. I say salad because of the
sheer amount of what you could do with it. Yeah.
Yes, the variety, the different kinds of salad. I genuinely like salad. I know, that's a boring thing to say, but I really do like a good salad, and you can get really creative with it. The second one is pasta. For the same reason, I think there's so many different kinds of things you can have with pasta, and there's so many different kinds of sauces, and I just love pasta.
I'm sorry. When you get done, you can go back and watch the replay of your face. It was both annoyed and happy all at the same time. I don't know how you did it, but that was fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it either. I mean, I don't think I was annoyed. I was just didn't know that we were going to do a different sound each time.
You're welcome.
But I love it.
You're welcome.
I love it. And then the third one is I had to have a dessert in there. So it is ice cream.
Congrats.
Love me some ice
cream. You got the Oregon stab on that. Okay, ice cream is a good one. Would you go I think we need to niche down just a little bit on the ice cream because it is so broad. Okay. Vanilla or chocolate base, and everything else after that it would be fine.
That is so hard. I feel like I'll have to go with a vanilla base.
Okay. Yeah. I would too. I would join you in that because you can add chocolate chip cookie dough to that.
Right. I feel like chocolate can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yep.
Yes. And I feel like chocolate ice cream doesn't always taste like chocolate. So there's that hot take.
Wrong. No, you're not wrong. We can do a hot takes episode next week. I actually have some of those I think we could totally bust up the internet with. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Number 3 would be tacos. Hard, soft, crunchy, grilled, stuffed. You can do so much with just the taco, with the tortilla, the meat, the cheese. You can make them healthy. You can make them fried. You can do everything with them. Number 2, I thought long and hard about what number 2 would be, and I kept coming back to some sort of egg. I didn't mean to hit that one. Some sort of egg concoction. So an omelet or a scrambled egg or over, just because you can make pizza crust out of it.
Right.
You can add so much to it. And the number 1 thing, and I do not have a drum roll here, but the number 1 thing would be donuts.
Oh, love that. Yes.
Yeah, because of the dessert factor. Also, they're my kryptonite. I prefer the straight up kind of sour cream frosted, like a cake sour cream frosted.
Okay.
I don't do none of that jelly nonsense. But in a pinch, I'll grab a jelly donut and just eat around the inside because that stuff's nasty. But if you have if I'm on a desert island with an unlimited supply of donuts, I'm probably gonna die pretty quickly, and I'll end up just eating around the jelly.
You've lived a happy life and die a happy death.
Yep.
Overdose by donuts.
Hey, on my tombstone, donut OD, DOD. Yeah. In the comments or in the chat, if you're watching live, Stephanie agrees with me. She says, so smart. You know what, Stephanie? I agree. I am very smart in this aspect alone, just with the donut aspect. Throw in the chat your top 3 or even just your top 1 food that if you had to eat it the rest of your life, you would. We are going to move into a slightly less funny topic. I don't know how to make the transition. Yeah, no, totally interesting. I was thinking as I was looking at a rundown how to actually make the transition, and I'm not really sure how, so we're just going to kind of make a left turn, and we're going to talk today about VR Church.
Yes.
Maeve, as we were prepping for this, you had a lot of questions, and so why don't you just kind of start from the top, and let's walk through VR Church, and is VR Church real church? What is VR doing, et cetera, et cetera. So take it away from here, and we can get after this.
Right. So I feel like I only maybe recently learned about VR. It kind of was in the back of my mind. I want to say in the past 10 years, I became aware of it. And when I first thought of it, I just, thought of people in the goggles walking around, I don't know, doing something fun in there. I've never tried it.
Nerds.
But yeah, exactly. Nerd alert. No, but you are very well versed, I think, in this field. So I'm just wondering, like, when did you first become aware of it, and how long has it been around? Can you just share a little bit of the history of VR?
Well, Maeve, as a matter of fact, let me take you on a trip back to. Hold on, I didn't have this queued up in my thing. Back to 1838.
Wow.
All the way back to 1838. Can I blow this up? Does this not blow up? Oh, I guess not. Huh. That stinks. Oh, there it is. I blew it up.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
So, in all seriousness, so VR has been around for a long time. The concept of VR, for those that don't know, stands for virtual reality. We were having a discussion about it on our Monday. We have a marketing meeting every Monday with the Alter Live team, and we were talking about VR and should we address it, should we not, like that type of thing. And we kind of wanted to run with this topic a little bit, not in any sort of Alter Live sense, but more so in the, hey, this is part of the zeitgeist. A lot of people are talking about it, and I think we need to clear up and kind of talk about the idea of VR church, and can it actually be church, and what does it actually mean? So the quick history of virtual reality is that it actually started in 1838, and it was these glasses here that you see. It was called the Wheatstone mirror stereoscope. And basically what it was just trying to make an image appear with depth instead of a 2D image. Now you would take a 2D image and have it become 3D. And you can see there's like a 45-degree angle and a 45-degree angle, and there's a picture here and a picture here, and it's reflecting off of this mirror here and into these goggles, where a person then would gather the eyesight information. So then a whole bunch of stuff happened, and like 100 years went by, and a guy named Stanley Weinbaum wrote in Pygmalion's Spectacles. Now, you know Pygmalion from what, Maeve?
I know it from Pygmalion the play by George Bernard Shaw, but also My Fair Lady.
Yep.
So I saw that and was immediately interested and wondering how that has to correlate with this virtual reality.
Well, who was Pygmalion in My Fair Lady?
Eliza Doolittle.
Exactly. And what was kind of the main purpose of Pygmalion?
There we go. I solved it. Well, she was a flower girl selling, just kind of selling flowers in Covent Garden, but then Henry Higgins convinced everyone that she was like this princess, heiress type person by just teaching her all of the proper etiquette and how to speak correctly.
And the idea is that she transformed from one thing into another, correct?
Yes.
So the idea behind Pygmalion's Spectacles is that the entire story of Pygmalion is a transformation from something lowly into something greater. It's the Flowers for Algernon type thing, although with less pills and with more kind of scientific interpretation.
Interesting.
The idea behind this is a science fiction novel written by Stanley Weinbaum, and the main character is this guy who has supposedly invented spectacles that you can put on and you can see and touch and taste and see, and you go into a virtual reality. It's a short story. I actually have it pulled up in another tab here, and I kind of started reading through it from the Gutenberg project, and I started reading through it, and it's kind of boring. I don't know if that's because it was written in 1938 or if that's because it's just boring. But it talks a lot about escaping as a drug. So there's kind of obviously there's a lot going on in 1935 and 1938. There's a world war happening, and we're in the Great Depression, yada, yada, yada. Or we're coming out of the Great Depression, and so there's a whole lot going on there, and so there's a lot that you'd want to escape from. So fast forward to after World War II, and all of a sudden we're creating these thing called the Sensorama, and this is where it starts to get actually virtual. And we're gonna kind of fly through some of this stuff here. They started inventing, again, more stereoscope pictures, trying to fully immerse people in their movies. In 1960, we started messing with 3D images, and outside of 3D images, we also started taking and putting sound there, because we had finally developed stereo sound. A lot of recording artists were taking, the Beatles in particular were messing around with stereo, but a lot of, Eric Clapton started doing this, yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden, they now, in 1961, they start looking at not just images that are static, but head tracking movement as well. And so how can a gyroscope and a gimbal allow you to look at different parts of the picture? So we're starting to stack pieces together on what virtual reality has become today. So we're going to keep kind of cruising along here. You can now see that the glasses are going to get a little bit older. It's weird. So this is 1968. This is technically virtual reality. So behind the back here, they're piping in an image up to this, and this little thing here is actually tracking their head. But like this, it's funny, you can see these things. It was never developed beyond the lab because it was too heavy for users to wear comfortably. They had to be strapped in because it was suspended from the ceiling. Ouch. Oh my gosh. Like, not technically, not super practical.
No.
So we're going to start moving forward. So this is where it starts to become big. General Electric starts to take notice, because they and a couple of other big corporations, especially Stanford had a lab that was doing it. GMI, actually, so General Electric is the corporation, but GMI is General Motors. And my grandfather actually used to work for General Motors. He was an engineer for their college called Kettering, and he was designing machinery on the line that is still used in a lot of plants up there. He was doing die casts and things like that. He was the one that was designing these things. But right around that time, they were also getting interested in virtual reality, because it was going to help them and help their engineers, like my grandfather, really start to see that. Here, I heard my little thing click over here. It was going to really start to help them see and play with what was being created. Okay, so we got to keep going here. I'm taking way too much time. I'm sorry. Let's move to like the 80s. Now we start getting into aerospace engineers that are using it. They're using it for flight tracking, and you really start to see this become huge in the aeronautics industry, and VR starts to become VR. So this is, when was this? 85. And this is where you can actually see this starts to take, there's head tracking, there's hand tracking. People are actually doing things. NASA starts taking it, and then Nintendo grabs hold of it. So Mattel releases something called the Power Glove, and if you've ever watched the movie called The Wizard from the 80s, it's a terrible movie, but it's also awesome because it's got Fred Savage in it. There's a couple other people in it. I think from Little Man Tate, what's her name? Jodie Foster's in it.
Okay.
Anyway, it's all about a kid who's like a avant-garde video gamer, and the evil kid has the Power Glove, and the Power Glove has like a bunch of buttons on it, and it's like it tracks your hands. And this is where it started to hit the mainstream, because Mattel released the Power Glove, which was a controller accessory for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Sega picks it up in 1994 and starts releasing arcade machines based around VR. Nintendo then releases the Virtual Boy, which was awful. I remember a friend of mine had it, It was only red. It was monochrome, but monochrome meaning one color. So it was black and red, and it was all this wireframe thing. And you literally had these goggles that you put on your face, and it had a controller that was just cheap as crap, and it would actually track your head. And you could play Mario Tennis, and you could play a bunch of other things. Revolutionary. It was terrible, but it was revolutionary. It was discontinued. You can see here, 1 year later, it was discontinued because it was so bad. But now they start releasing virtual headsets for the house. And this is where things start to pick up in terms of video games. So Google picks it up in 2007, and they release what's called Google Glass, which didn't last very long. It never really got out of the kind of Kickstarter mode. Then Palmer Luckey introduces and creates the Oculus Rift. He does a Kickstarter, which raises...
Isn't there a movie named that?
Yeah, it's named after the movie. Well, there's a movie called Oculus Rift, but he just called it the Oculus Rift. And this is where video gamers start to really get into it. The Oculus Rift takes a lot of cues from all of those other things, but now puts it into a headset and allows you to do tracking. So Facebook then in 2014, this is huge, buys Oculus for $2 billion. And you can see right here, this was a defining moment in VR's history because VR gained momentum rapidly after this. So then things start to pick up. A bunch of other headsets are released. I don't need to go through all of those at the same time. The biggest innovation that has happened so far is that virtual reality has now gotten to the point where it used to cost thousands of dollars. You know, from 1968, they couldn't even take it out of a laboratory because it was so heavy, or 1965, because it was so heavy. Now, I have sitting over there a virtual reality headset that costs $250, that has 64 gigabytes of onboard storage. It could have way more, but it's got 64 gigabytes of onboard storage. There are no cables whatsoever. It is just a headset and then 2 wireless controllers. I don't have to put any tracking things or anywhere. It's tracked from the headset itself. It's called inside-out tracking. There's 2 cameras. Actually, there's 4 cameras on the headset that track my hands when I move them. So it sees my hands and the controller's moving. And it allows me to connect to the internet, to communities, to chat, to do whatever. I could play video games. I could do whatever I want inside this headset. Wow. And it's got about a 3-hour battery life because it's all wireless. Now I can hook up a cable right into the side of it and have unlimited battery life. I wouldn't ever use it for more than an hour at a time just because I get a little queasy with it.
Right. Okay.
But the idea is that, and I mean, there's all sorts of. So this is one of them right here, the HTC Vive, which was a Steam VR one, which is huge. But again, you see these little things here, these boxes. These are called satellites, and you actually have to put these boxes on the wall and hook them into your computer. That's the biggest innovation that has happened in the past couple of years. Is Facebook developed Oculus, put $2 billion behind it, and now we have a completely wireless system that you don't need satellites for, that is just, everything is within a headset and 2 controllers. It's insane that we're actually able to do this. And by the way, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't, I mean, it's not like super high fidelity and all this other stuff, but super 4K. But I think you'd get super sick if you were looking at 4K that close, because I mean the screen is, you're an inch, maybe half an inch away from your it's about an inch and a half, away from your eyes. But it's relatively flawless, and that's huge. So that was a long way of talking about, look at this, the Oculus Quest 2, which is what I'm talking about. The Quest 2 sold like hotcakes during Christmas as well. During Christmas of December 2021, right around there, it was like one of the only video gaming systems you could buy, and it was it was insane how many of these things they were selling, and it's insane to see how many people are actually online using the Oculus Quest as well.
Wow, I had no idea there was such a long history. Like I just mentioned before that, like my experience in knowledge is very limited.
Right.
But from your explanation, it seems that, the thing, so what I see or saw as virtual reality was, there's this app on the there's this app called like Arts and Culture through Google, and you can take like little virtual tours through. I know, like I think during quarantine, like I went on a tour through the Louvre because I was like, what else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And you know, I could see like different things just all through my phone, and I was like, okay, this seems like virtual reality because it is, you know, kind of an immersive experience, and I'm obviously not really there, but and it's also in a form of escapism. So it seems that the intention behind VR is about it's like an immersive experience, but there is also an escapism aspect. Would you say that that makes VR VR?
I mean, yes. And think about what you were doing at that time during the pandemic. I think it's really interesting that you went immediately to the pandemic too.
Yeah.
Well, because think about it, like the amount of pain and struggle that all of us were going through at the same time led a lot of people to want to escape reality. And virtual reality, literally, it's built into the name. It's not real reality. It's virtual. It is a created reality. It is virtual. It is non-existent. It has no place. It has no location. It has no anything. All it has is ones and zeros, which is digital. And the idea that we are, I don't know, escapism. I keep coming back to that word. Even during our pre-production, we were talking about that. And as I was kind of doing a bunch of research and looking into all of that, I keep going back to the main reason that people nowadays are buying the Oculus is to escape reality. If you saw at the very beginning of all of this, and even up to relatively recently, it was scientists, it was NASA, it was engineers, it was people that are trying to figure out manufacturing. That's why I was kind of hitting on those things, was because it wasn't commercially available. And now we've come to a point where it's boom, this point in time it's commercially available, and all of a sudden we're watching people that are my age, people that are your age, even people that are older, but mostly people that are younger than me, going, oh my gosh, this is a $250 thing that I can put on for a couple hours and escape the crap of a pandemic or the crap of a bad job. It is the Ready Player One thing happening right in front of us.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah, I think escapism is such a key word when talking about virtual reality. Yeah, and I feel like before we move on to the next topic, I'm wondering if we could quickly, because you talked about how it seemed like the earlier kind of versions of it was just kind of playing with the different dimensions you could do. So would you say maybe like an early form of VR was like going to a 3D movie?
Oh, totally.
Interesting.
I think, yeah. I think you're on the right track there too. And it didn't really become until they hit whatever that was back in the 60s, they started really figuring out head tracking. That's when virtual reality became reality. Because like if you think about it, you remember those magic eye things? You gotta like look through them. Do you ever try one of those?
I think so. Yeah.
It was just a weird bunch of colors, but they told you like, oh man, look through it, and then all of a sudden you get it that one moment, and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is like, my eyes are doing something crazy. That's just a stereoscopic image. But for people that have never experienced 3D moving pictures, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, for them, they're escaping their reality because they're watching these things like just take off in front of them. Well, we're essentially doing the same thing that they were doing, except way further technologically down the road.
Cool. Okay. Well, it's interesting because I feel like we're like VR, like you said, is becoming a mainstream thing. Like it's not uncommon to know someone who has like a VR set, and it's becoming almost like a household thing that you have. And so I feel like just when we got uncommon to know VR, and we got used to this, like familiar with this concept, now there's meta. which is so new, and if you were watching the Super Bowl, you saw that commercial with Matthew McConaughey in a hot air balloon, and it's interesting because it seems to be taking Facebook, which is a way that you can connect with people in your real life, like this friend from elementary school, this friend from camp. I can stay in touch with them. These are real people online. But then it's tying your real life with a virtual life. And I don't know, like, what's the deal with that?
So, what's the deal with Meta?
What's the deal with Meta?
So, Maeve, let me take you back to the heady days of the beginning of 2021, where all we had to worry about were riots on Capitol Hill and
oh my god!
Remember those days? And the pandemic.
I remember it like it was last year.
Oh yes, and vaccines, and also nobody was angry. Nobody was doing anything. Back in about May and June of last year, Facebook got in a whole lot of trouble because they were found to have been spying on people and releasing data and yada yada yada. We all know kind of the evils of big tech, and none of us are immune to this because we're on platform. We're on Macs right now. To say that Apple's not doing anything with our data, come on, we're not dumb. We're not dumb at all. But they were actually brought in front of Congress, and there was a lady who kind of was whistleblowing on some of the things. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, Facebook rolls out this initiative called Meta, and it's part publicity stunt, and it's part their investment into that $2 billion investment we talked about earlier into Oculus. So what Meta is the idea behind, well, even think of the word. The word meta means outside of. So it is the overarching narrative. So when you think of a meta story, when you're watching a movie, well, the meta narrative is the actual narrative that's happening outside of what you're watching. So it's like, I think, what's the movie that's telling three stories? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it right now. Not Sweet Magnolias, Memento. So I don't know if you've ever seen Memento, but Memento is telling three stories at the same time from three different viewpoints, and they all coexist, and they're all telling one story. You're just seeing different parts of the story happening. That's what Meta is. So what Meta is trying to do is say, okay, we are, like it says it right there, connection is evolving and so are we. Well, that's like the most corporate, bland speech that you've ever heard. But this is the thing that actually helps right here. The metaverse is the next evolution of social connection. Our company's vision is to help bring the metaverse to life, so we're changing our name to reflect the commitment, or our commitment to this future. Okay, again, corporate speak, but it helps to define what they're trying to do. Meta, Facebook, but the overlords that own Facebook and Oculus and WhatsApp and Instagram and all of that stuff are trying to take us from Web 2.0, which is a lot of services. So companies that are offering services to us, like Facebook, like Google, like Apple, like Amazon, and they're trying to push it to Web 3.0, which is with caveats, of course. Web 3.0 is essentially personal connections that are decentralized. And so what Meta is saying is, hey, you can use this headset, or you can use our products, but essentially you can use this headset to connect with each other wherever you want. And it's now we are socially going to be connecting face to face. You don't have to worry about a chat room anymore. You can talk to people on a camera. You can walk around with them. You can do all this stuff. You play games with them and do all this stuff. They're essentially saying that we're going to be the progenitor of that. So that's really what it is. I mean, it's nuanced and it's subtle, and there's VR undertones, and there are some really strict things going on there that I don't necessarily agree with, but gosh darn it, my Oculus Rift is so cool, and it's owned by Facebook, and like, I hate that I like it so much.
Yeah. That is so interesting. So it could almost be like this social hub, like where you can go and connect with people. Like there could be communities. Because I heard that you could even go to like a concert through Meta. So I don't know, like, could this be something that could work for the church world?
It's an interesting thing. So you see, I mean, I don't know how far in you've gotten with like Life Church and what they're doing, but Life Church, right before Christmas, they rolled out their very own VR space in this thing called AltSpace VR. And what they're doing is they created their entire world based around their church. They created a building, and they created screens and they created classrooms, and they recreated what they were doing with one of their buildings, and they have a screen up with a thing, and then everybody goes into the auditorium and they watch the service, and there's a pastor there, and which is it's an interesting idea. Go ahead, I cut you off there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when we were talking about VR before, the key word was escapism. Like, that is why people wanted to do VR. And I'm just wondering, like, how does escapism fit into the church world? Like, should we be seeing church as a form of escapism? I think it's not necessarily like a bad thing to be like, okay, I'm forgetting about the hard things of my day and the hard things of my life and going to this church or logging into this church meeting and really focusing on God and the community and worship. Could that be considered a form of escapism?
So you are, and I don't know if unintentionally or intentionally you're thinking about this, or if you're using the language, but you're now hitting on the main theological question that I think a lot of people are wrestling with right now, even in a digital sense, like we talked about last week, but even more so in virtual reality, because you are escaping, quote unquote, the reality that God has made, and you are going into a virtual reality that mankind has made. Yeah. And so aren't you leaving the good that God has gone to something that is evil because mankind has created it? That's like kind of the if A then B equals C type thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as easy as that, because so I had a conversation with I don't know if you remember Mark Lutz from Lux Digital Church. I had a conversation with him. I interviewed him for another podcast that I do yesterday, and he brought up something that helped me reframe it a little bit. He said, talking about, they have a digital only church on Twitch, which is a gaming thing. And again, we talked about it. I can link to that in the show notes later, or in the comments. It was a great interview with Mark and kind of what they're trying to do with groups and Ultra Live and all sorts of stuff. But he said every single screen name that logs on, that's not just a screen name with a number attached to it. That is now a person with a history and a backstory. That is a person that deserves to be loved by Jesus. And most importantly, that's a person that we have the ability to reach out to. We have the ability to minister to. And I sat back as I was kind of cutting through the interview today. I sat back and I was like, you know what? That was actually very prescient and very smart of him. Because in VR, yes, we are eschewing our reality, or God's reality, for a virtual reality on one hand. But weren't the apostles doing the same thing when they were reading from a book? The apostle, Paul writes a letter and then gives it to a guy or a group of people while he's in prison in Rome. And then these people take this letter to Philippi, the churches in Philippi. And so now they're reading from these letters and they're saying, oh my gosh, and they're learning from it, and they're creating community around this letter. Essentially, they're creating community around Jesus, but they're reading from something that a man has made. Isn't it kind of the same thing? I mean,
yeah, that's such a good point.
Thanks.
I
try.
No, but it's good. It brings up that conversation again, how, just using the tools that we have to follow the Great Commission and preach the good news to, wherever we can. Right.
And if you think about it, you're right. The Great Commission is the thing that kicks us all in the pants and says, hey, we need to go and do. But then looking down the road a little bit further, when can VR church, I guess let's answer the question, is VR church real church? And the answer is yes, but so it all depends on how you define church. Church is defined as the people. It's an action. Church is an action, an active, alive thing. It's not a building, which is why I'm not a big fan of what Life Church did by creating a building. I'm actually creating a VR space for our church, Bay Hope, but I'm putting it on like a big island in the middle of like kind of a cartoon area. And it's wide open. It's wide open, and it's a gathering space because like I don't want people to feel like they're trapped in another building. Like, oh crap, I'm in another room inside of another room.
Right. Okay.
Because there's just a perception there. But the idea that we're creating spaces for people that God loves to come together to learn, to grow, to be taught, to love, to sacrifice for, to pray for, to do all the things. That's what a church is. Is it as good as being in person? No, never will be. It will never replace the in-person church. However, if we're only defining church as that place you go to once a week or maybe on Wednesdays for a Bible study, then we're doing the Bible a disservice, number one. But number two, we're doing God a disservice, because why would he have let us get so far down the road with all of these tools, with all of these well-meaning, well-intentioned, smart, brilliant people in all of these industries, if not for the sake of the gospel being spread? There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all really good points. I think that to remember, that screen, the thing that Mark said about the screen name, and how a screen name is not just a robot logging in. It is a real person with a story, with, heart beating, breathing, real person there. So, and they deserve those meaningful connections.
Yep. 100%. Did I answer all your questions, Maeve?
Yeah, that was great. And you know what's interesting? While you were kind of talking about what Meta is doing and what like VR is doing, it honestly sounds kind of like Alter Live.
You're not wrong. Like everybody says like, oh man, I gotta go spend a bunch of money and create and do all this stuff. It's like, well,
right?
Aren't we kind of doing that? Aren't we already connecting face to face?
Yeah. And we're using the tools we already have. Like, you don't have to go out and buy like that headset. You can log in on your own computer on a browser. Like, how easy is that?
Or your phone. You can just take your phone and download the app and use it.
The app works great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call. So all of you out there watching, asking the question, should I buy a VR headset? The answer is maybe, but maybe go sign up for Alter Live first. Go to alterlive.com for a free trial, and we'll be able to show you what it actually looks like. And in all seriousness, somebody, I can't remember who, had said that Alter Live is kind of the bridge between real church and VR church as well, because we're taking a lot of what digital church is doing, and we're putting a lot of the in-person elements into it, and that's helping a lot of church leaders see, oh yeah, no, this can actually work. So I'm all on board. Maeve, what else? Any other questions that you have for this whole topic?
No, I mean, I think this is a conversation that can go on and on and on, but I think this was a great introduction, and to learn about the history of VR and what what's happening now and what's to come, and how that can affect the church world. It's all very, very interesting and good to think about.
Absolutely. I'm sorry for being a gas bag and for talking a lot. I'm very passionate. Very passionate about this subject.
It was so interesting. I learned a lot.
Cool. Everybody out there, hopefully you're like Maeve and you didn't click out when I started rambling a little bit. Thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of the Alter Life Show. Remember, we want to engage with you and talk with you. If you're watching this on YouTube and you have not already, we would love for you to just do two quick things. Number one, hit that little thumbs up button, and number two, hit the subscribe button. You can even unfollow us later, do all the things, but I want to get our page ranking up because it kind of looks cool, but more than that, we really want to make sure that we get the idea of Alter Live and VR church and online church and kind of everything that we're talking about in this industry out there to more people. So if you do those two quick things, if you're on Facebook, all you gotta do is just hit share. It's easy. You just hit share and then enter, and it does it for you. It's pretty simple. Maeve, have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
I will. Everybody else out there, thanks so much. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.